Certainly, I wish we were starting tonight with game one of a playoff series against St. Louis, who I think ended up in the fourth seed after the round robin. Certainly, we had much higher expectations going into the bubble. We knew that we were going to play a real playoff tested team in Chicago that had a lot of veteran players that have had a lot of success in the playoffs and some really good young players. We felt good about our team heading into the playoff series, and unfortunately, we got bounced out in 4 games. I thought that, when I look back at the season, that's really it's 2 parts to the season. The first 71 games that we played in the regular season, and then the season was paused in mid-March due to the pandemic, and then we picked up obviously with our playoff series against Chicago in August. I thought over the first 70 games, when I look at the Oilers from this year 19-20 to 18-19, I thought we made a progress in a lot of areas. We went from 25th overall in points to 12th. We were trending towards, if we'd have continued to play at the same winning percentage, we were trending around 95, 96 points. Power play obviously went from 9th to 1st. Penalty killing went from 30th in the league to 2nd. Goals against, we went from 25th to 15th. Goals for, we went from 20th to tied for 14th. So we made a lot of progress in goals for, goals against, specialty teams, and in points. I thought that we had some young players that over the course of the season really impacted our team. Certainly Ethan Bear right off the bat going into our top 4. Kader Yamamoto coming up middle of the season gave us a real boost in our top 6, and Caleb Jones did a nice job when he got in there through the second half of the season, and especially when Clefbaum got injured. He played, I think, 10 games in the top 4 and did a nice job. So we've got a push from some younger players. Obviously, massively disappointed that we weren't able to win the series with Chicago and advance further. So I know that we've got some things that we need to try to accomplish over the course of the summer here to get our team to take another step. I think the first order of business is to try to continue to hold, to where we're at and improve upon that. We don't want to obviously make a step forward this year and then fall back again next year. So we got to try to hang on to what we've got and build on that. So I think that's my mindset heading into this off season. I'm open for questions.
Thanks, Ken. We'll open up with a question from Jason Gregor, TSN Radio. Jason, as soon as your microphone's active, go ahead.
Ken, obviously the 4 games was disappointing. So now that you look in this summer, you're historically being a patient guy, but what do you do with guys like Athanasiou and Benning as RFAs, and especially with the flat cap? How is the flat cap going to impact what you can or can't do?
Well, it's going to have an impact. Obviously when we made the deal for Athanasiou at the trade deadline, I just left the general managers meeting, the trade deadline come before it, and then the was looking like the cap was going to be, they told us at the general managers meeting, a minimum of 84 to a maximum of 88, depending on the percentage that the union wanted to uptick the cap. So we were looking at an increase of the cap anywhere between $2.5 to $6.5, $7 million. Certainly that's going to affect the decisions that we make this summer. Obviously you bring up 2 players that are restricted free agents. So that there's a real possibility that this pandemic is going to affect what we do. And I would say, Jason, I think obviously I had a relationship with Athanasiou in Detroit. We were trying to bring in more offense. Obviously, we also at the trade deadline we made some other moves. Tyler Ennis, I think that Athanasiou's impact wasn't as good as I hoped. So I'll assess here over the next 6-7 weeks leading into the off season.
Next question to Rob Tychkowski. Go ahead, Rob.
Hi, Ken. Most people who watched the Oilers last week felt that it really wasn't the same team that they saw in the regular season, that something was missing. What do you think was missing, and do you think it's a one-off, or is it something that as a GM you're going to have to address so that it doesn't happen next playoffs?
I guess I would say to you, I don't see what you're saying you saw. If I analyzed the series, I thought in game one we weren't ready to play. I thought that was a veteran team in the other locker room. They were up 4-1 10 minutes into the game. I think that they knew the playoff series started when the puck dropped, and it looked to me like we were going to try to wade into the series. Now, saying all that, in all 4 games, I think we had a lead in all 4 games. It felt like we were chasing the series, but every game we had a 1-goal lead. But we when we got those leads, we didn't hang on to them for any longer than 3, 4, 5 minutes. So, game 2, I thought we played obviously right off the bat, 20 seconds in, Connor scored. And game 3, we're up 3-2 with 6 minutes to go in the game. I think they had 8 shots on goal the entire third period. We had a couple of breakdowns, and the puck went in the net both times. And we turned, we were in like I said, we're 6 minutes to go in the game. You're up by a goal, and you don't even get the game to overtime. And then I thought game 4, we got off to a slow start, and I thought we pushed in the second and really pushed hard in the third, and these series are fine lines. So, I mean, we're playing against a team that's got, Taze and Kane and Keith, and they got some really good young players there. They got a Stanley Cup winning goaltender. So it's the playoffs. It's, you're not going to run amok in the playoffs. You're playing against teams that they're good hockey teams. So I thought the Chicago series in game 1, they came out and they were ready to go. We were not ready to go for whatever reason. I actually thought the rest of the series we played fine, but fine isn't good enough. And I thought that the series was decided in certain, by making plays. They made more plays than we did, and we made more little mistakes that they capitalized than vice versa. So, I don't think you're going to go into a playoff series and just start to just run amok and totally outplay and totally outshoot anybody. So I don't see it the way you saw it. I think that I'm hoping it's, Rob, I'm hoping that we got to get back to training camp, and we've got to put ourselves back in the same position next year. We got to, over 82 games, we got to play our way into the top 8 in the Western Conference, and we've got to be more prepared for next year than we were for this year. I'm hoping it was a learning moment. I thought that you looked at the way Jonathan Taze played in the series, and thought Duncan Keith, and I thought Crawford, as the series went on, he'd missed a lot of time because of COVID and wasn't on the ice. And I thought as the series went on, he started to get better and better and better. So I'm hoping it was a learning moment, but I don't see what you saw.
Next question from Reed Wilkins. Reed, go ahead.
Thanks, Andre. Thanks, Ken. Ken, leading into the season, we talked a lot into last season. We talked a lot about splitting the goaltending, Smith and Koskinen, and they were separated by 1 appearance, and they both played in the postseason. I'm just wondering how you would assess how that worked, and as you go forward here, either from acquiring somebody or a prospect stepping up in the next couple of years, does somebody really need to take the reins with the goaltending? I mean, can it work with a split, or do you need that definite number 1 guy here as you move along?
Well, Reed, I would say to you, my assessment over the regular season, the first 70 games, goaltending was a real strength of ours. I thought that, and I thought that the coaching staff did a great job. Early on it was 2-2-2, and then they started to ride 1 for a while, and then they went back and they both had their opportunities. And like you said, they didn't go 1-1-1-1-1. Between Tippett and Schwartz, they kind of sensed when it was time to let one guy run for a little bit, and early in the season they let both guys get into it. how in the playoffs, I think, you look statistically, I'm not even sure what our goals, what our saves percentage was, but I thought, we probably the goaltending didn't play as well for us in the playoffs as it did in the regular season. Again, it's a small window. You're talking 4 games, going forward, obviously Mike Smith's an unrestricted free agent. Koski has 2 more years to go on his contract. The season just ended on Friday. We had exit meetings with the players on Saturday, and got out of the bubble Saturday night. And I'm just starting to. Yesterday, obviously, was the lotto. So now we're here over the next few weeks. I don't sense that there's going to be a ton of trades around the league in the short little time here, or moves. I think it's much like it's like May of the hockey season. It's a normal May. There's we're a month, 6 weeks out from or late April after you've lost in the first round of the playoffs. There's a time here to kind of evaluate and then decide what direction we're going to go. I don't. Probably our best young goaltender is Stuart Skinner. I think he needs to be in the American League next year. He needs to really establish himself as the number 1 goaltender in the American Hockey League, playing on an every night basis. He's got a lot of talent. He's a big guy. He's 6'4". He takes up a lot of space. He struggled the first half of the year and then went down to the East Coast League for a couple of games. I think he got blown out 1 game and then bounced back. Was first star the next game and then went back to Bakersfield and played good the second half of the year. So we need him to build off that. So obviously we have to decide whether we're going to re-sign Mike Smith or look at other alternatives. And that's what I got to decide here over the next few weeks.
Next question to Terry Jones. Terry, as soon as your microphone's active, you can go ahead.
Yeah, can you evaluate your defense, both in terms of the defensemen themselves and playing defensive hockey in the playoffs? And 4 games, and you mentioned the window. Was that a large enough sample size to make the moves you've got to make in the off season? And looking forward to the playoffs across the street, to what extent are you going to be scouting them for support players?
You asked a lot of questions. Hopefully I can answer all. Number 1, I think you asked about our defense. I thought, we finished, just looking here, we finished 15th in the league in goals against over the 70 games that we played. So we were middle of the pack. Obviously we need to be better. Now I don't know if that's. I thought we went from 25th to 15th. We need to make more strides. I think ideally, to consider yourself a team that can go on a long playoff run, you got to be able to defend. You can't just outscore your opponents. And I think you'd like to be a top 10 team in terms of goals against. So we've got to get better in terms of goals against. And I don't think that's totally a reflection on the defenseman. I think it's a reflection of the commitment of the entire team to keeping the puck out of the net. I think that obviously after game 1, Terry, our coach Dave Tippett called out a couple of our defensemen and needed them to play better. Obviously, our team responded in game 2. We've got some good young defensemen in the system. I don't think they're ready to step up and play top 4 minutes, but we've got some good young, obviously Ethan Bear did it. So I'll evaluate where we go, but they're pros, they're veterans. And I think that our defense is you're always looking to upgrade. You're always looking to upgrade, but the reality of trying to upgrade and get better defensemen than the defensemen that we've got, it's not easy. I think we've got real good, legitimate, solid pros, NHL defensemen. This organization has drafted a lot of defensemen, so we've got some young defensemen coming. As far as scouting, Archie Henderson, our director of pro scout, through the play-in series, he's had his staff. They've all had games, and we've done video scouting. I've obviously been last week I was at it pretty well every game. I missed a couple I didn't get to. Maybe on game days, the afternoon game, I would be with the team in the morning, and then scout one game and take a day off, afternoon off, and then watch the night game. But I watched most of the games last week, so I really got a good feel for the top 12 teams in the Western Conference. I did get a chance to watch a few games from the Eastern Conference, and obviously now I personally will watch some games to see what players. Obviously, we don't have with the cap being flat, and it looks like it's going to be flat for the next 2-3 years. Certainly, lots of teams are going to be looking for cheaper support players, and they're either going to be players coming through your system or looking at the marketplace. So our pro scouts are video scouting. Archie Henderson's given all our scouts games to watch, assigned them teams and series over the next 2 weeks to do video scouting, and I'll be watching games as well. Was there one more question there, Terry, that in the middle, or did I get them both?
I think we're good. I'll ask Terry to rejoin and raise his hand if you missed a question there. Next question will be to Ryan Rashog. Ryan, as soon as your microphone's active, you can go ahead. Go ahead.
Just back on the idea of defending, Ken. I mean, you had a couple of players that were just off the charts in terms of point production in McDavid and Draisaitl. I mean, they were minus players through the regular season, and that is a little bit rare for guys to put up those kinds of points and be minus players. Just maybe a thought on, we all know what they can do offensively, but are they where they need to be defensively, and what you thought of their overall game in the postseason where it mattered the most in a short period of time?
Well, in terms of the regular season, Ryan, Leon had a tough month of December. I can't remember, a tough month in November in terms of the plus minus. I remember that in the month, and we got off to a great start, 7-2-1, 10 games, and then we just sort of stayed level for the next 30. I think we had 29 points in 30 games. We played a game under, and I know that Leon had a tough month. So the 1 month I think had a real impact on it, but it's 1 month. It's still, obviously it counts. You can't. But I thought that from that point on, Leon's he was on the ice for less goals against, and I think there was more pluses. I think that obviously when you look at our team, we get a ton of offense from those probably Inyata and Nuge, probably three players. Take up a lot of our offense. I thought obviously the first 20 games, James Neal, I think, had a bunch of goals, had a hat trick on New Year's Eve, and then he went dry a little bit and he got injured. I think he missed 16, 17 games. He was out of the lineup with an injury the second half of the season. So certainly, you'd like to get more. We're trying to figure out a way to get a little more offense from deeper into our roster. I think come playoff time, what ends up happening, I know, I've been at it a long time, the other team does everything they can to try to neutralize your best players, and sometimes they can, and when they do, you need down the lineup to get some goals. I thought our power play was good all year. I think it produced good in the playoffs, but I think at the end of the day, I think we played 4 games. Did we give up 16 goals? 6 in game 1. I think 3 in game 2 is 9. 4 in game 3 is 13. 6, 9, 13, and 16 goals. It's an average of 4 goals a game against in the playoffs. That means that 3 games, you'd have to score 5 if you want to win 3 out of 5. Hard to win 5-4 every night. So I thought that at the end of the day, we gave up too many goals. We couldn't hang on to the lead. We're up 3-2 in game 3. Couldn't hang on to the lead in the last 6 minutes. Game 4, you go into the third period 2-2. They scored a goal, we don't. And I thought that we made progress this year on defending as a team. And I think that that's another area that we're hoping to defend better. And how do we get a little more offense out of the bottom part of our forward spot?
I'll go back to Terry Jones. Terry, as soon as your microphone's active, you can ask your other question. Go ahead, Terry.
Yeah, Ken. It was basically as we only played 4 playoff games, and you were really looking forward to the playoffs to evaluate. Is it a large enough sample size to make some of the decisions you have to make going forward? And just one other thing, if you have a message to the fans of the Edmonton Oilers, what would that message be?
First off, on the 4 games, it's a small sample size, but it's playoffs, and you know I'm not going to put the entire evaluation of our team over the 70-game regular season and forget about the playoffs and vice versa. Certainly, probably learned some things about our teams about our team and our players in the 4 games against Chicago that will factor into whatever decisions we make in the off season. I guess my message to the fans would be, I remember when I took over the job on May the 6th at the press conference, I felt that, we wanted to get to March the 1st and be in control of our own fate. It's hard to make massive steps. We just got to continue to make, baby steps and steps going forward. And I thought that when we got to March the 1st, we controlled our own fate. We were in the thick of the playoff race. I thought that Dave Tippett and his staff got our team we played hard. We competed on an every night basis. I thought that we made progress in the 1920 season, and we need to make a little more progress here in the off season and heading into the 2021 season. And, when I watched the Stanley Cup play-ins last week, so many teams so close, and part of it's personnel and part of it is just knowing how to play your best at the right times. And I think the more times you can put yourself in those situations, the more prepared you are. And that's why we're going in the off season. How do we make our team a little bit better than last year and try to, over 82 games, find a way to play our way into the playoffs and be more prepared next year than we were this year. So I believe we made some progress. We know that we've got a lot further that we want to go, that we need to go in order to be a team that can really compete for the Stanley Cup. I feel that we made some progress here. And I guess that's where I sort of give the statistics early on in my lead in comparing 18-19 to 19-20. I thought we made scored more goals. We defended better. We were better on special teams. We moved from 25th in points to 12th in points. How do you get from 12th in points? We were within a whisker of being 10th. I think one point between with Dallas and somebody. We could be on the verge of 10. How do you get up to 8 or 9 overall points? You're not going from 25 to 12 to 2. It's got to be a stepping stone. I thought we made some progress, but we got to continue to head in that right direction.
Next question for Daniel Nugent-Bowman. Go ahead, Daniel.
Hi, Ken. In the early 90s with Detroit, you kind of had a few disappointing first round exits early in the playoffs. I granted, I think your team is a little bit different stage of the development maybe than those Detroit teams, but I'm wondering if there's some parallels that you can make there. And when it comes to maybe guys like Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, is there an evolution in their games that you could see somewhat like Steve Yzerman had to make in the early to mid 90s to elevate the team to being a championship caliber one?
Well, great question, Daniel. I mean, obviously I think at the end of the day, when I look back at I was a Red Wing for 36 years, and 85, 86, we had the number 1 overall pick. We had 40 points, and we had, and we grew the team. There was way more and then I think about the 4 Stanley Cups, and twice we lost in the finals, but there's way more disappointments than successes. People focus on the successes, but when living it, there was way more disappointments, way more times that we were out and we were disappointed, but those disappointments fueled the successes down the road. And I think the other thing is, and that's what I was, the Oilers made the playoffs 3 years ago, went to the second round of the playoffs, and I think everybody was hoping that was going to be a stepping stone to future success. And in the next 2 years, they missed the playoffs. That's why we can't fall back. You need multiple chances. You got to find a way to. The good teams find a way to play their way into the playoffs every year. They get into the tournament every year, and then somewhere along, with multiple opportunities, somewhere along the line, you start to piece it all together. That's what happened. That's what happened in Detroit. So that's why I'm saying I thought we made really good progress this year compared to a year ago. But if we go out next year and we go backwards, then the progress is all for naught. So we've got to build on this progress, and we've got to find a way to make the team a little bit different, a little bit better, a little bit deeper, and then start out next year. And everybody starts game one, and over 82 games, you got to play your way into the top 16. So you're constantly trying to make your team better. And if we can play our way into the playoffs in the 2021 season, then you're going to look back and hope that this massive disappointment against the Chicago Blackhawks is going to be the experience and fuel for us motivation for us to do something better next year in the playoffs. But if we fall back, we miss the playoffs, it's just going to be, it's nothing. It really is going to, it'd be no factor in the overall scheme of things. So it's, how do we build our team so that we got to make the first thing you got to do is make the playoffs every year. You can't go on a playoff run if you don't make the playoffs, and it's hard to make the playoffs. So that's what went on in Detroit is, in the 80s, you spent some time, drafted some players, then we were lost twice to the Edmonton Oilers, I think in 87 and 88 or 88 and 89, and then missed the playoffs a couple of times, and then started to make the playoffs, made the playoffs 25 years in a row. And now you get 25 opportunities. And I think it's to try to build a team that can make the playoffs year after year after year, and then you tweak it. But if you make it and then you miss for 2 years, and you make it and you miss for 3 and you make it, it's hard to build something. So I gotta work with my staff, see how we can make the team a little bit different and build upon this versus falling back.
Next question to Mark Spector. Mark, as soon as your microphone's active, you can go ahead. Go ahead, Mark.
Ken, I want to go back to Daniel's comment about Nugent, I should say Draisaitl and McDavid. You got two fabulous offensive players, best guys, best tandem in the league maybe. They scored tons of points in the playoffs for you. They produced, your team had 4 goals a night in the playoffs. That's plenty. You allowed more than that. Do those two guys specifically have to do what Yzerman did, do what Crosby did, do what Taves did, and dig in and show their team how to be concerted defensively and play proper defensive hockey and let the goals come? Does your team require their defensive leadership more than it needs their offensive leadership right now?
The answer would be yes, but I saw that happening. I would say to you, and that's why we talked about Leon here 5 minutes ago, and I thought that in the month of November, Leon's plus minus was, but the second half of the year, and that was one of the things that we talked about in the exit meeting with Leon Saturday morning before we left the hub. Dave Tippett and I talked about. I remember one night in Carolina in March or late February, and there's a puck turned over, and how Leon buried his head, and he it was a 2-on-1, and he ended up killing the 2-on-1 just out of sheer determination to back check and to play defense. So they are getting better. But I also think that in this playoff series, we were playing against battle test. We were playing against players. Some players there had won 3 Stanley Cups. They had to learn that too, and we're learning it. You're focusing on the 2 guys, but certainly our entire team. We're learning. We are learning that defense is as important as offense in terms of going for long playoff run. So that's the experiences, Mark, that I'm talking about. I'm believing and hoping that the Chicago series, this disappointment, is going to be an experience down the road. So we are getting better. Again, this team was 25th in goals against. We went to 15th. Now, can we take it from 15th to 10th? It starts to get harder and harder and harder. Like it's easier to go from 30th to 20th than it is to go from 12th to 4th. You're starting to get into the elite, up there with the elite teams, the elite defending teams. So we're making progress. Everybody wants all the progress to happen now. So they are learning. They are getting better. They bought into Dave Tippett asked them to work harder away from the puck. I watched it. They did play harder away from the puck. We just didn't. We were loosey-goosey in game one. I don't think we were ready to go. And then, the rest of the series, it was decided, like I said, one game was decided in the last 6 minutes. The other game was tied going into the third period. That's the fine line of finding a way to difference between winning and losing in a playoff series. And a veteran team like Chicago took us to task, and we've got to build on that.
Next question to Adam Cook. Adam, as soon as your microphone's active, you can ask your question.
Thanks, Andre. Thanks, Ken. Hey, Dave Tippett suggested after the Game 4 elimination that he thought the Oilers played hard as they could, but there's a big difference between the intensity level required in the regular season and in the playoffs. You obviously, agree with those sentiments somewhat. But is that something you can address as a GM as well going forward? Or do you think that's just kind of growing pains for the team?
I think it's a combination. I think it's, part of what's got to happen is how do I, obviously have the final decision on personnel moves or in the off season. How do we make a move or two to make us a little bit better? And then there's some players that are going to be here a long time. And that's the same with all 31 teams. There's some players that are going to be on your team and they're learning and they're growing, on how we can get better. So I think it's a combination that has to happen between what I do this off season and those players that have been here and will be here. We all got to figure out a way to get a little bit better. A little bit better secondary scoring, a little bit better team defense. You always, special teams were really good. Now we were first and second. Hard to think you could be first and second in specialty teams every year. So maybe one of those areas slips a little bit, but you hope it slips from, into 6 to 10 and doesn't go down to 15 to 20, because then that's going to really affect our ability to win. So part of it's personnel, part of it's the people that are here.
Next question to Jack Michaels. Jack, as soon as your microphone's active, you can ask your question. Go ahead, Jack.
Ken, after more than a year into it, and you talk about how the margins are so thin, have you already determined what ingredients are already there that just need to be improved upon within the existing room, and what missing ingredient you might need to go outside the existing organization to get?
Great question, Jack. The answer would be yes. I think I've got a good idea what I'd like to do. Can I do it? That's what I got to find out now over the next couple of months. Again, if you look, we're salary cap challenged, but there's probably 20 like us, when you come up with a flat cap. So it's not like we got cap space to play with. So that's going to affect, so trades are going to have to be similar money for similar money if there is a trade. What we did last off season, Jack, is when we sat in the room leading up to July 1st, I thought what I wanted to do was try to sign, I call them pros, players that have played professional hockey, either in North America or in Europe, and sign a lot of pros, come to training camp. Let's have some depth. Let's have some competition. We signed Gaetan Haas and Nygaard and Sheehan and Yurko and Archibald, and re-signed Chason and I think there's one or two others, and we came to training camp and knew that some of them, we signed so many, it was impossible for all of them to have an impact on the team, but we were going to let the coach determine, and if we had some injuries, we'd have some depth. And I think some of those players have played real well for us. Obviously, we made the decision to sign Archibald to a two-year extension. I got to now, and we signed a 1-year extension with Haas, a 1-year extension with Nygaard. I'm hoping that the experience that they had, when Nygaard and Haas came to training camp last year, they didn't know anything about the pro hockey in North America. They were coming over to see, and the coaching staff didn't know anything about them. Well, in Game 4, Tip put Gaetan Haas in the lineup, and I thought he played good in Game 4. So we're hoping that two of those players, for example, are going to feel a little more comfortable heading into training camp and be able to contribute by being in the lineup right from the opening night, where it took them both probably 15, 20 games before they felt comfortable and the coach knew them. So some of our improvement has to come from within. And, as Terry asked the question a while back, we're going to continue to watch games. I think that, there's going to be some players on the open market this year that aren't going to be able to get the money that they had hoped to because of the flat cap. And can we sign another player or two that maybe on the bottom part of the roster can impact us a little bit?
Next question to Patrick Henry. Patrick, as soon as your microphone's active, you can ask your question. Go ahead, Patrick.
So, Ken, you're talking about improving the team on the ice, but we've seen over the last 2 years with the Blues last year and the Golden Knight the year before that the chemistry in the team or what's happening outside the ice is important too. Do you feel like you have to improve the team with that aspect as well, or you feel confident that you have the good tool in the locker room?
It's funny, you look at the St. Louis Blues, people were sort of wondering about their chemistry. And I'm looking at the 18-19 season, and they were dead last in the National Hockey League, I think, on January the 1st. So their chemistry was probably better the second half of the year. The more you win, the better the chemistry is. But I would say to you, I feel good about the chemistry. In talking to the players, we talked to Dave Tipp and I talked to every player as quickly as we could Saturday morning. I think the feeling was, adding Mike Smith, who was a veteran. James Neal and Mike Smith were really good friends. They were veteran guys. That they were two, having some sort of a veteran presence in the locker room was a real positive. I'm big on, I guess, if people were critical of me, one of the critical of lots of things they did, but in Detroit, maybe I hung on to the veteran guys too long. But I think veteran people are important on your lineup. They're sort of like coaches. They've been through a lot of experiences, and for we've got lots of younger players, and those veteran players can be, they're sort of like coaches in the locker room, and they're role models. So I want to make sure that we've got a bit of a veteran, some veterans in there to kind of blend with our kids. But yes, I thought we had good chemistry. I thought we played hard all year. I thought they liked one another. I thought that Dave Tippett and his coaching staff did a great job from day one of training camp, getting the team to buy into what he was. We were trying to be better defensively and chip in offensively. I thought we made some progress. Now we got to build on it. But yes, I do think that we had good chemistry.
We've got four hands raised for questions, so we'll take these four questions to conclude the call. Next question I'll give to Min Dhariwal. Min, as soon as your microphone's active, you can ask your question. Go ahead, Min.
Great, thanks, Andre. Ken, with these exit meetings that you had with all the players, obviously we're not, privy to what you guys discussed and whatnot, but what was your sense of, what was said with your leadership group, specifically Connor? He's been here 5 years, obviously got into the playoffs in 2017, but only being able to play the postseason once in the last 5. Where's he at with how this all played out against the Hawks and buying into what the team needs to do collectively to get back into the playoffs and maybe go deeper?
It's a great question, Min. This year was a little bit different. Most years when you do exit meetings, I probably start them 3 or 4 days after your season is over. You want to obviously get to the players before they leave town. We lost out 7:00 on Friday night, and I think at 9 or 9:30, I'm in a room with Connor and Tip, massively disappointed. Like it's 3 hours after the game, so I think you always need a little bit of time to get the real perspective versus the emotion. So this was a unique, within less than 24 hours, I'd met with everybody and they were all gone. We had to get out of the bubble and everybody had to get going. So, what was the feeling? Well, we've just lost out, massively disappointed. We had way higher expectations. We'd like to be starting tonight playing St. Louis in game 1 of the I think they're the 4th seed, game 1 of the next series. Now, what I'm going to do here over the next month is double back to some of those leaders, that leadership group that you're talking about, Connor, Leon, Darnell, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, people that have been here for a while and I think, I'm hoping that people, they realize we made progress, didn't make enough progress, or we'd be playing starting tonight. But we're way closer to being where we want to be now than we were a year ago. But at the end of the day, what was the mood of all the meetings? Massively disappointed. We just, we lost out. We ended up losing out. I think the game was at 5:00. Maybe it was 8:30. By 9:30 to 11:00, I think we met 4 players. Tip and I, and then we started up the next morning at 8:00 in the morning. They had breakfast. They would do their exit interviews in one room. 15, 20 minutes later, they'd come over and we had everybody out by 2:00 in the afternoon. So massively disappointed, massively down. And again, I'm going to double back here over the course of the next month and meet with the leadership group. And then they've had a chance to digest. I've had a chance to digest. And what I'm trying to do, the reason for me for exit meetings is to try to get, the feeling on the team chemistry, the feeling from in the room, the players, from the coaching staff, gathering information as we head into the off season to try to figure out what moves we need to make our team a little bit better. So everybody's massively disappointed. Need a little bit of time here. I'm going to double back with them and talk to them and get their perspective once the emotion is out of it.
3 more questions. Jason Gregor, you can go next as soon as your microphone's active. Go ahead.
Ken, I know you talked about improving defensively, and a lot of that came on special teams, there's no doubt, because the last 3 years, your team's averaged 2.16 goals against at 5-on-5, which is exactly what you gave up this year after 2.18 the year before. And you've had 5 of the same defensemen. I know team defense isn't just on your defense, but when you look at the overall thing on your blue line, do you just have to make a change simply because it's been the same group? And really statistically, and maybe that's different than what you see on the ice, but statistically, there's not been any gains in limiting goals 5-on-5.
That's a good, obviously I come in here last year, and I wanted I needed to take a year to evaluate what we've got. So again, I believe I've got a way better understanding of. You're talking specifically defensemen, the 7 defensemen. Certainly, I've got a way better understanding today of what we've got in terms of defensemen and what I would like to. And then now I got to make some decisions going forward.
Next question to Ryan Rishaug. Ryan, go ahead, Ryan.
Ken, in the days that followed the loss in the playoffs, Dave Tippett took a little bit of heat, whether it was decisions on starting Mike Smith in game 1 or not putting the Nugent Hopkins, Draisaitl, Yamamoto line back together, considering how they were effective in the regular season. Do you think those criticisms are fair in any way, shape, or form? And can you evaluate what you saw from your head coach and his staff in the playoff series specifically?
Well, Ryan, I've been in it a long time. When you lose a series, one of the things that I enjoyed most about the Stanley Cup championships was there was nothing to second guess. So if you don't win the Stanley Cup championship, if you're not the last team standing, the nature of professional sports is when you've got passionate fans, and that's a great thing. We want passionate fans. If people didn't care, then it would be a different game. So when you've got, and we're going to be second guessed, and I think that's the nature of the beauty of the sports business. So we second guess ourselves. You do things and you I don't want to say second guess, but you evaluate, you make decisions today based upon all the information at hand, and then you go out and then you get, down the road, you get to look back and say, what did I miss, or would I do it differently? And you just need to make way more decisions that work out, but you're going to make some decisions, whether you're a head coach, whether you're a general manager, whether you're a player, you're going to make some decisions that don't work out, but you got to make way more decisions that work out than don't work out. I thought when I analyzed Dave Tippett, I thought we made great progress this year. We got way more progress we want to make, but I think he was a big piece of the progress. I thought that getting to work with him every day, he builds, he communicates, he builds relationships. He's got a real good relationship with the top players. He communicates with them. I thought that, we've talked about the goaltending, the way the plan was early in the season he got both goalies in it. He kept both goalies. I thought he had all the players feel that they had a little piece of the pie. They all had a little, they had some were on the penalty kill, and they all, he keeps everybody feeling like they've got stock in the company, and I think that's really important as a head coach. So when you lose out, obviously some of the decisions I made, some of the decisions that Tip made, they didn't work out, and certainly we know we're going to be open for second guessing or criticism. That's a part of being involved in pro. If you don't want to be second guessed, we should get out of pro sports and we should go find something else to do. So that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. That means that your fan base has passion, your fan base cares, and they want you to do better. And I think that's fuel for us to and motivation for us to try to do better for them next year.
We'll take one more question from Daniel Nugent-Bowman. Go ahead, Daniel.
Again, I just hope we can end on some housekeeping here. Obviously, Tyler Ennis and Adam Larson didn't finish the series. Can you update their statuses and what their losses meant to the team, in your opinion? And were there any other players that were kind of dealing with some significant injuries during the 4 games there?
Ennis got a fractured leg, and the good news, it's not a knee or anything. He did have some ligament damage down and around his ankle. He'll be fine down the road. I think it's going to take him probably a couple of months, 2.5 months. I think he should be, our team doctor tells me that he should be 100% and ready to rock and roll for the 2021 season. Obviously, he's an unrestricted free agent. Thought he came in here and played good. He's an Edmonton boy, so I'll talk to him and his agent here, as we get further down, and make sure that everything goes good with the healing process. In Lars's case, he was on the ice for the morning of Game 3, I think, and then halfway through, early in the warm-up, he did something with his back. I don't know if it was a back spasm or it was but we were hoping that he was going to go back. He got massaged and did some things, and couldn't go in Game 3. And then they worked hard with him on the off day. He felt better, and then just wasn't quite ready to go for Game 4. We were hoping that we could win Game 4, and we were hoping that we were going to have him back in the lineup for Game 5. So those are the two. Beyond that, I don't think we had, other than the normal bumps and bruises. We were only in it a week. We weren't. If you're in it, once you're in it 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 weeks, then people really start to. We were banged up a little bit, but other than those two guys, we were fine for that week.
Thank you very much, Ken, and thanks to members of the media. Reminder: we'll be sending out audio and video files shortly.